Hi everyone, my name is Ifelua or Ife or Ife. And actually that's the only remix I'd be accepting for my name because I understand that people that are not from Nigeria may not be able to pronounce it. So you can call me Ife, I actually go by that name. Welcome to my YouTube channel, With Love Ife, and on this channel I will be talking about life in general from a Christian perspective. So I will be more focused on spirituality, relationships, in love, in marriage, in friendships, and in dating in general, sex, food, travel, experiences, and just life in general. Welcome to With Love Ife. So, I just want to ask you a really quick question. Have you ever had a life experience that made you question the existence of God or a spiritual entity? Because I have. So welcome and join me in my journey of learning, unlearning, and relearning. And I hope you enjoy. So what inspired the name With Love Ife is actually based off of the meaning of my full name. It's called Ifelua, which means the love of God. And yeah, so that's why I'm focusing a lot of my conversations on the love of God first and kind of how to build a relationship with God, how to seek Him, how to know Him, how to love Him. And then I would branch off into like self-love and how that all ties together from a mind, body, and soul experience. And then from that, I will be able to talk about it in a way where I would try to come from a place of love and understanding, because I understand that a lot of times we have a lot of opposing views that could easily kind of obstruct relationships, or, you know, can make it a little harder to build relationships or to continue relationships. So those are the kind of things I will be focusing on. So I'm gonna start from a mind, body, and soul perspective, because mind meaning mental health, body meaning physical health, and soul meaning spiritual health. So a lot of times we tend to obstruct our own relationships, or you know, not build healthy relationships just because we have opposing views, we have different religions, but for me it doesn't really matter. If you're a Christian, if you're a Muslim, if you're a Catholic, you know, if you're Hindu, Buddhist, whatever your background is from, I just like to meet people where they're at in spirituality. So that's the kind of energy that I like to see in people as well. But also I understand that like sometimes when God speaks to you and you start to hear Him, people don't really understand how that's like. They don't understand God at the level that I probably do. And there are some people that I meet that I don't even understand God at the level that they're at. So that's why I always try to do everything without judgments, or try as much as possible, humanly possible, not to judge anybody. And I just try to like focus on the strength of their character and just understand that I have to just meet them where they're at every time. So with this experience, I will just start with my journey, my experience in life in general, just a brief summary of where I'm at and where I came from, my background. So before I started this YouTube video, I was really like concerned about what's going on, because I felt like I was hearing from God a lot, but it was really hard for me to come out of my box a little bit, and kind of, because doing YouTube in general is just like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, because you have to be on camera. Sometimes it's really hard to like be on camera and like try to relate to people, but I just knew that like I needed to get the message out there, and I knew that like there's a lot of knowledge that I have from my experience that I feel other people should know, and should just, you know, just use for their own spiritual lives and their relationship with God. So I kept hearing God tell me that I needed to start something like a YouTube channel. At first, he told me to open up my social media page, which was really stressful for me, because since the beginning of the year, in February or January or something, I started to hear from God saying that you need to open your page. You need to open your page. So I started cleaning up my page a little bit, just like little by little. But I told God that like I really need to process this. So I did. I processed it a lot. It took a few months. So I processed it from February till August, and then I finally opened up my page in August. So that's something that, again, it was a relationship that I had built with God. So I kind of hear how he speaks to me. I know what when it's him speaking, and if I'm not 100% sure, I tend to just ask questions and just tell him to reveal it to me in a way that I will understand. So maybe I'll just be like super specific, like give me a dream or something, you know, confirming that this is you. And most of the time, like, he gives me a dream. So sometimes I would ask for specific things, and sometimes I would just know it's God. So I think the first way to like start your relationship with God in general is to build some kind of knowledge, in the sense that like know how he speaks to you, right? So for me, the way that I did it was I was able to understand that God speaks to me through dreams, through visions, through like a word, like a spoken word. Like I would just hear something, and then I'd be like, yep, that's pretty much it. And usually, like most of the time, it comes to pass the way it's spoken to me. Or sometimes God just sends people to me and says, God told me I should tell you this. Actually, that's probably like the easiest thing, because like it's easier to believe when God is sending someone, because you're like, oh, how did you know that information? Or how did you know I needed that in my life right now? So I've had a lot of experiences like that. So for me, it was just knowing how God speaks to you first. And then just like trusting in that process and just leaning into it. And it's so hard, because as humans in general, it's just so hard to lean into like God and to like trust him, because you don't really, we like control. We like control, you know? But the funny thing is that as humans, we don't actually have any control at all. It's just, control is just like an illusion, you know? So for me, I just felt like it was time to just lean into that process. And I had a lot of experiences that like led me up to the point I am today, which I will be sharing with you guys, because I feel like it's needed. Maybe there's someone in their lives right now that's actually in that time, in that season in their lives, and they're just questioning a lot of things, and they don't know how to, where to start. They don't know how to like go about it. They don't even know if they believe in God. So that's why I felt like doing this channel was like super important, because I just needed to get the message out there. So I'll just go ahead and give you a little bit of a background into my life and my journey, but I'll start with my life and my family. So basically, when I was about 5 years old, I grew up in Nigeria. I was born in Nigeria. Actually, I was born in Warri, so I'm a Wafi babe. So I grew up in Nigeria, and then from there I moved to Europe. So I used to live in Holland, and then we stayed there for a little bit, and then went back to Nigeria, and then we stayed there for a little bit, and then we left the country again when I was about 11. And so I traveled with my family to the Middle East. And then from there, we just did a little bit of traveling around, and then we came to Canada. So, and then sometime in my adult life, I decided that I needed a new environment. I really like to travel. So I went to Europe again, but this time I went to the UK. So I stayed in Scotland, and then I moved to London. I worked there for a little bit, and yeah. So, and then I'm back in Canada because this is home for me too. Actually, I have a lot of homes, but Canada is my main home. And then Lagos. I absolutely love Lagos in Nigeria. Like, I don't know, that's just home. Like, you just leave the airport and it's just home. And it's not like the best looking city in the world, but it's home, you know? So, yeah, so that's where it's at for me. So I spent a lot of my life traveling. So I learned a lot of different cultures. I learned that there are different people in this world. And so it's really helped me in my journey because at such a young age, I just told myself that I would never judge anybody because I feel like, I mean, obviously there are some times where you just don't know that you're judging people, but you do. But like, it's very like subconsciously you do. So it's hard, but like, I try as much as possible to be really intentional about like not judging people. So that for me is just meeting people where they're at from a place of love and understanding. So that's like my motto. So yeah, that's my backstory. So when I was about 6 or 8, I would say 8 years old. It's been a long time now, but when I was about 8 years old, I was in church one day. I grew up in a Christian home, by the way. So Christian family, we even went to Deeper Life. You know, if y'all know like Deeper Life Church, you'll know what I mean. It's Deeper Life. You can't wear earrings, you can't wear jewelry, you can't wear pants, you can't do all these fun stuff. You can't even have makeup on. So it was Deeper Life, like it was deep, like deep. So that's how I grew up. So basically, went to church, you know, it's all of that fun stuff. And then when I was like 8 or so, my parents took us again to church, and we just like dragged ourselves there. And usually I would kind of most of the time I would sleep in church, especially like during night vigil, because night vigil is like night vigil. I'm like tired, you know, we came from school, we didn't even have time to rest a lot, and then now we have to go to church, and like we're being dragged there, and it's just like a lot. So we most of the time we just sleep. But our parents usually would not really mind. Maybe they would like come and like push you or like poke you or like get up, move around, blah blah blah. So we would do that a lot, but then it was more like a routine thing. So yeah, so this one day though, I went to church. I did not sleep. I was surprised. You know, and then the pastor was preaching, and like it was fire for fire. We're like praying, and then there was music, and for me I was just kind of like, oh my God, like I feel so spiritual right now. Like I need, you know, I'm feeling the spirit inside my body. I'm 8 years old, what do I know? So I was just praying, and you know, and at that moment I really felt like God was there with me, and his presence was just all around me. So I was really into it. So I just felt like, and the pastor was like, give your life to Christ and like say this prayer and blah blah blah. And I was just like, yeah, sure, you know, let me say this prayer because I'm just really feeling the spirit right now. So I said the prayer, like, you know, God, you know, come into my heart, come into my soul, blah blah blah, and you know, take over. And at that moment, I felt like I was really like saved, like a Christian, like I'm good. Like if I died today, I'd go to heaven, you know, that kind of like feeling, the energy, bruh. So I was like, God, please just take me now because I'm ready. I'm ready. But God was like, nah, honey, you're not ready. So much to do, you don't even know. So anyways, that's where my journey started. So that's where like that's the day that I can actually remember that I actually gave my life to Christ, right? So I was 8 years old, I think. I can't even remember, like, I remember exactly everything that happened, but I can't remember exactly what age I was. So it was between like 7 to 8 years old. So let's just, yeah, within that range. So after that, we did all our traveling. And my life just kind of went in phases. And later on, I'm going to talk about my relationship with my family and all of that, and how it just pushed me into like a spiritual relationship. It's such a long story, but I didn't always have a great relationship with my father. So for me, it kind of like, although it like we all grew up in like a Christian home, although we all, you know, had this whole religious background, it was very religious, you know, it wasn't spiritual at all. So there was a lot of judgment in church. There was a lot of judgments with just your people around you. There was a lot of judgments from my parents too, from just close family members, and that was just how it was. Nobody questioned it. So when I finally like became a teenager at 16 years old, I was shipped to Canada. Finally, and I was just like, yay, like finally I have my independence, you know. So I was really happy. Like I was kind of sad to leave, but I was also kind of happy that like, oh, finally, like freedom. You know. So for me it was a good thing. So I moved to Canada. My brother was already here, and my sister was already here too. But prior to that, actually, I'm gonna go back to a point in my life where that was really, really hard for my family. But this is not really my story to tell, so I would just say like a short like synopsis about that. So basically, both of my sisters were involved in a fire accident, like a fire, like a gas explosion accident. And so that really gave me survivor's guilt because for me, I felt like I was just there at the scene of the accident, but it just didn't happen to me. So this was me carrying around, this was on my sister's birthday that it happened, my younger sister's birthday. This was after my mom decided that she didn't want to leave the house because she felt like the Holy Spirit was telling her not to go out that day. But she ended up going because she had a business to run. And she was just going to go there for like 2 or 3 hours. And the moment she left the house, it didn't even take up to 30 minutes when it happened. Maybe between 30 minutes and an hour when it happened. And then I was there at the scene in the exact location it happened. The only thing that was separating the both of us, or three of us, was my sisters were like a door, basically. So they were on the other side of the door. That's the only thing that separated us. But like when it all happened, the cook, we had this little like stove thing. It was a green stove, and like most Nigerians had it in their homes, right? So basically, it was on, we are trying to cook like rice or something. And then there was like a gas cylinder somewhere outside, but there was like a window and a door like separating the two places. And there was like a hose or like a pipe kind of connecting the gas cylinder to the other cooker. So we were like, oh, like there's a little bit of a leak, so let's just use this other small green stove. So we did, but then we had one thing on the other cooker, but like we had it like turned down a little bit. So that's where it was at. And then all of a sudden I see the green stove and it just like that. And then it just, I don't even know what to call it. It just went up and then in flames a bit, and then it just shut off completely. And then I was like, you guys need to get out of there. I feel like something's gonna happen. And then as soon as I said that, they were like, yeah, we're coming. We just need to finish this one little part here. And as soon as they said that, I just heard this noise and it was like vroom, and then it just shut off too. And that happened outside. Before I could go out, I was like, what happened? They just all ran downstairs past the door, went to the faucet downstairs in the garden area. One went to the front and one went to the back, and that was it. They were burned. So one of my sisters had about 70% burns on her body. That's my youngest sister, the one that it was her birthday. And the other one had less burns. I'm not sure how much, but a lot less. But it was the other one, the older one, that was crying the most, and it was the younger one that was just she like internalizes things a lot. We kind of tend to do in our family, so she just was just like that, and just, you know. And then thankfully, our neighbors, they came back from work for lunch at that time, so they ended up rushing her to the hospital. My brother went with him, sorry, my neighbor's husband. So my brother went with him. And then when they were there, they called my parents. They told them what happened. My mom was like, she was just lost. Like she was hurt. She was pained. She was distressed. Like it was just crazy. So basically, that's the story. So that was just a really, really tough time in my family. I saw my mom cry. Like, I saw her cry for the first time ever in such a way that I've never seen her cry before. And I feel like she blamed herself because she felt she didn't need to leave the house at that time, but she did. So I feel like she blamed herself. But anyways, fast forward to like years later, after all of these experiences, you know, I think we had come together as a family actually, and just kind of worked with it, made it work somehow. And it really kind of strengthened our faith in God. So after all of these experiences, fast forward to a few years later, I was 16 years old, finally freedom, living my life, you know, and I feel like that's when it all kind of started for me. So mind you, we had a lot of different experiences. So prior to coming to Canada, we already like had experienced like so many different cultures. I used to speak a little bit of Arabic. Oh my gosh, I don't even remember half of it now. I speak basic French. I speak some of my language, Yoruba. I speak English fluently. That's the only language I can speak fluently, sadly. But so we had all these other experiences and meeting people from different cultures. So when I came to Canada, it was so much easier for me to kind of like relate with people on a different level because my mentality is already different. But when going back to like relationships, I didn't realize that relationships was kind of a big deal for me, because I didn't realize actually that I took a lot of baggage from like my moving around all over the world and just traveling consistently. I took a lot of baggage from that, and I'll explain. So basically, when you're dealing with relationships and you're dealing with people, sometimes it's really difficult. So with my friendships, I realized that I think I saw people as replaceable, because every time we would leave, it would always be like, oh, you know, I finally decided to settle here, and now I have to leave again. And I have to go to some next place that we don't even know anyone there. And so that relationship is over. And we don't really know if we're going to meet again ever in life. We don't know. You know, it was like us being forced into like a season in our lives. You know, that's how I felt anyways. I don't know. My siblings might have different experiences, but that was my experience. So I just felt like it didn't really matter to make relationships, like to keep relationships and build relationships, you know what I mean? So every time I would feel very like I felt a lot of times like I didn't need people, and I felt a lot of times like I was a loner. Like I had friends, like you had friends around you, you have acquaintances, but you're a loner because you know that at some point you're gonna have to leave, and at some point you're gonna have to say goodbye. So that was kind of like my coping mechanism for that. So in there, I felt like God came into the picture slowly. So the thing with God is this: He tends to wait for you to do your thing, live your life, experience different things, date guys, meet people, hang out, play around a little bit. And then when he's ready, he just grabs you like this. And you're like, what? So that's how it was for me. So I've heard that like some people have like the same kind of experience. Me, I had it. So when God was ready, like he would prepare you for this, one heartbreak here, one, bad experience there. And before you know it, when it feels like, okay, it's time now, my child, you ready, girl, you go, girl, you got to do what you got to do. He just grabs you like that. And you're like, what? So that's what happened to me. So I was going to church at 16, and I had started like about to finish high school. I would say I was just in my last year, but I was going to this church. It was a redeemed church. It was nice. It was fun. I was in the choir, because at some point I left the choir when I was back home, and I just never went back. But this time as a teenager, young adults, I was in the choir, and I was just kind of, enjoying myself, like as a Christian, religiously, but also somewhat spiritual, but not really. I was enjoying myself singing in church, doing all this religious stuff, just things that I just knew growing up, and I just felt like this is how it's supposed to be. So I mean, I would question things a bit, but I wouldn't really focus on them because, like, a lot of times you're not really allowed to question things. So, but for me, I'm naturally a curious person, so I used to question things a lot. But then I would just be like, oh, well, whatever, and just go with it. Well, this time, there was a time where my dad called us and he's like, oh, leave the church, go to deeper life, because this is where you're supposed to be, blah, blah, blah. So, and it was just very forceful. At the time, anyways, we felt like that was it. It was very forceful. And, you know how Nigerian parents are, sometimes they just kind of use their money to like, be like, yeah, so I'm not gonna send you money, or they'll start acting up because they know that they're the ones that's paying your school fees or tuition or rent or whatever. They're supporting you, so it's always like a struggle, So he was kind of throwing that out there, like, oh, like not directly, but he was just like saying you need to go to the church because this and this and this will happen. So we just got upset and we just like stopped going to any church at all. And like I low-key felt like he was kind of happy about that, like that we stopped going to church. Like I think low-key he wanted us to like, he would have preferred if we didn't go to church at all than going to that church. And I mean, he kind of had a point there though, because at the time we just felt like the message that we were receiving from church was more like prosperity messages and all sorts, but it wasn't like pure. Like it felt like there was an agenda behind it. And he had come to visit us like 2 or 3 times, and he ended up just seeing the energy, and he so I didn't really blame him, but what I just did not like was the approach. So anyways, I stopped going to church, and that was that. Then I continued to live my life, went to school, and then at some point we started going back to church again, and then we were made to leave the city and move, and that's a whole nother story. And so it was just a whole like it was always like back and forth. Like it came in different phases. Like sometimes I would like go to church and be all religious, and then sometimes I would like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And then sometimes I would be like, oh, but like I feel really bad, so I feel like I have to do it, you know. And then I'll feel guilty for all the bad things I do, like sins and stuff. And like, no, so relationships I'll get into that I know I'm not supposed to be in, but I'm in it anyways because I was young and having fun. But yeah. So my life just went in phases, like my spiritual life just went in phases and phases and phases. And then eventually it was just, I think the defining moment for me was 2016, June. So in June 20, I'd had some issues with school. And I had to move cities to finish school. And so I worked for a little bit during that time. And then I went back to school. So 2015 December, I finished my final exam. Like, imagine going to school for like 5 years. And then you finally finish your final exam and you're like, what? So I was so excited. But then I remember in 2016, I was looking for a job for like months and I couldn't find one. And in 2016, I just came back home. I think I finally got a job. Yeah, I had gotten a job for like a month. And so I just came back home and then I was like, look, like I kind of need to start to like get my shit together and take care of my life. Because I feel like I was just all over the place. Like, not really all over the place as a person, just like mentally, like, just all over the place. Just like, I needed to focus. So I was just getting a pull. And I was getting a pull from God, like, in some direction in my life, but I just didn't know. So I was just like, girl, you just need to focus. You just need to get your shit together. So I remember coming home from work one day in June and I just entered my house and I was just like, I just laid on my bed and I was just feeling kind of down, like after work. And that same day, when I had that thought in my mind, then God spoke to me. So I was just laying on my bed, just doing my thing. I don't even know what I was doing. I think I was just reflecting on the day. And God just came to me and he's like, I don't know, I just felt this presence and then this whole like something took over my body. And God was like, right. So I picked up my phone and I went into my notes and just started writing. And I was just writing and writing and writing and writing. And I just did not know what this was. No, actually, I did know what it was, but because I know God, like I've experienced God before, I just didn't know, like this sort of thing hasn't happened to me before. Like I've experienced God in like different religious ways, but this one thing hadn't happened to me before. So I just was writing and writing and writing. And as I was writing, it was like it was me that was writing, but then it wasn't. I don't know how to explain that to you, but that's just how it was. And I just kept going and going. And for me, it just felt like a presence was there. Someone was inside of me possessing my body, but I was also inside of me possessing my body. So I was just writing. And like, as I was writing, I was reading what I was writing and I was understanding what I was writing. And for me, it was like God was just telling me, girl, this is your purpose. This is what you are on this earth to do. So for me, it was a big deal. And I remember writing and I got so tired, but I was still writing. And so it probably like took me like an hour or more, and I just kept going. And like sometimes when I would write, God would be like, nah, change that. That's not what you're supposed to write. Write this instead. So I would write it, I would change it, and I would write it. So it was like a communication, like a conversation, and I was just writing. And then at the end of that, I was just like, oh my God. And I just stopped and I just was like exhausted because like all of this energy is just too much for like one body. So for me, I just felt like, whoa. And then I was scared because I was like, I read everything that I was writing, like I was still conscious. So I read everything I was writing and it was about my life. And it was just overwhelming. That's the word. It was overwhelming. So I was so scared. I'm like, I can't believe you're saying this to me. Like, this is my life. Are you kidding? Like, it was all good things, but it was all big things. And it was all scary things. And for me, I was just in my comfort zone. I was not ready for all of these big things. So I was just like, God, what are you telling me? Whoa. So I was so like overwhelmed. I was afraid. I never went back to read it. Never went back to read it. So I was like, I was too scared. It was too overwhelming. It was too much, too big. So I never went back to read it. But then fast forward to 2018, I believe. No, actually, fast forward to 2019, January. So for Christmas, I had gone to Lagos, to Nigeria, just to have a good time. You know, I was living in the UK at the time, so just have a good time, just to, you know, it's been a stressful time. I had just moved to a new country by myself. I had just started my master's. I had just, no, financially, it wasn't really great because exchange rate was just mad. It was mad. Like, it was mad. So yeah, there was just a lot of miscalculations for me that I did, but I know that I just didn't, like, I was being called to go somewhere else, like outside of Canada. So I chose the UK. So it was a really tough time. So that Christmas, I was just trying to go back home and trying to just have a good time and just relax and just breathe. And, you know, I just really like my time off because I really do take time to process things. And so I do a lot of self-care. I do a lot of self-care. I think that's 100% important. Whether you're single, whether you're married, self-care is 100% important. So for me, I just felt like it's time. So I went to Nigeria and I went with a friend at that time, and we took a flight from Scotland, Glasgow to Lagos. We went to Amsterdam first, and then from Amsterdam we went to Lagos. So, and then that January, I'm really close with her. We've known each other for over 10 years. You know, we've had our moments in our relationships too, in and out, but you know, we're getting back together again as friends. So at that moment, I just felt like it was good because we finally just turned up in the UK together. We didn't even know that we were going to be in the UK around the same time doing our masters, just in two different cities. So it was kind of like, whoa, like this is good. So anyways, she came, we were together. I was chatting with her sister consistently. And then in January of 2019, we heard that her sister had died. And it was an accident. And so for me, that just really messed me up. I started to question everything. I started to question life. I had a panic attack. I had panic attacks. I had anxiety. I had all sorts of things. And I was just like, what is going on? And then at that point, I remember when she even told me, she was like, oh, she's dead. Like, let's just say her name is Sarah. She's like, Sarah's dead. And I was just like, what? I just spoke to her. So like, what are you telling me? And then she told me she died in a bus accident or something, and I was just like, no way. So I was in denial for a while, and then I just lost it. I think like that was just the tiny like little piece of string left, and it just broke. It broke. So at that time I was also in a relationship, a long distance relationship, by the way. That's another story for another day. But basically it wasn't going so well. Later on I found out that it was actually a toxic relationship, but so I was just dealing with a lot, like processing a lot. So when that happened, and then we had to come back to Scotland, and I just had to be there for her and be strong for her, but I was taking it so hard. But I just didn't want her to know that, because obviously like two people can't just break down, and like I just felt like I didn't even have any right to break down, because it's not like my family member, it was a friend, and it's her sister, so she had every right to break down. So I didn't really give myself time or space to like process all of that stuff. So that's what happened. So by the time I was everything was going on, I just lost it, because like it just felt like so many things happening all at once, and I just didn't know how to process it. So I lost it. And then at that time, like I remember my boyfriend at the time, I would tell him like, I'm not good, you know. Sometimes I'll yell at him for no reason, and sometimes he would lose his patience on me, you know, for no reason. So it just really took a toll. It just really took a toll on our relationship. So then at some point it just got toxic, and then that was the start. So for me, it was school, it was moving to a new country, it was my friend dying, it was financial difficulties at the time. Like it didn't seem like much, but man, the exchange rate was crazy. It was, and I was putting myself through school too. So it was a lot for one person.